Hey guys, it's Aman and Christina from the Our Rich Journey podcast, where we answer your questions about making, saving, and investing money for financial independence and retiring early. Today's question comes from a longtime follower of ours, someone that has been taking action and is seeing just amazing results. In fact, we've talked to them a couple of times already before, and so I'm excited to finally hear their voices on this call-in and excited to answer this question.
Yes. So their question is about a 401k, and Allison has just left her employer. She has a lot of money in her 401k, and she's trying to figure out what she should do with that. So we are going to play this question, but before I do that, like we said, we love listening to the questions. A lot of times we'll be talking to people on Instagram or through YouTube comments, and it's always great to now be able to put a voice to the name. Next step would be putting a face to the name, which would be even better, but we love when you call in and we can hear you describe your situation and your question. So if you have questions that you want to submit to us so that we can use for our future podcast, you can go to ourrichjourney.com/podcast so that we can hear it and we can play it for a future episode. But let's get to Allison and Greg's question, and then we'll get to our answer.
Hi, Aman and Christina. This is Allison and Greg. We own the Airstream out of St. Louis. We've chatted in the past. So first and foremost, I wanted to thank both of you for doing this podcast, and also in the past, back in 2021, last 2 summers ago, we took some of your classes. And since then, we, obviously learned a lot, and we ended up selling our house that we worked and remodeled on for 8 years and made about $600K off of it, which was a pretty damn good profit. And then, so since then, we've been in a rental. We've invested about $230K into VTSAX, VTI, and $30K in I bonds. We funded our Roths. We currently have about $230K in cash. And the best part of it is that I'm 52 and my husband's 41, and I just retired from my corporate job after 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry, once again, because of you guys and being able to realize that, we're in a good position to do so, and really learned a lot from you. But what I was saying is that I did retire from work, and that whole year I was putting in my entire paycheck into my 401k of 2022. So I got that match, and then I also, after that got maxed out, I started putting the rest of my paycheck into the Roth part that was available at work. And so my 401k is still sitting at my job. I did open up an IRA with Fidelity. I just need to move it over, but I'm a little freaked out after putting all that money into it. And obviously it's still low because of everything that's gone on in the market. And just need some, I just don't know what to roll it over into after doing the 230K into VTSAX or VTI, same thing. And that was at the height of the market, and I lost so much money. It's just freaking me out not knowing what I should roll this 600K that I have left in this 401K into. So that's where I'm at. If you have any questions, I guess give me a shout back or any suggestions. But that's where I'm at. And once again, thank you to both of you guys, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks. Bye.
Go Allison and Greg. I mean, when they said they sold their house for $600,000 and Allison's retired, they're living in an Airstream. I mean, come on, this is just amazing, right? They have accomplished so much that they should be so proud of.
Yes.
And the problem that they're having, you know what? I love talking about this particular problem because I think a lot of people are going to be in this situation, but the fact that she's also talking about that the market is down and she's looking at her portfolio and she's saying she lost money, we have to get into that as well.
Yes.
But the fact that she has $600,000 and she's trying to decide what to do with that, that is a good problem to have. And I hope we can give her some food for thought on this.
Yes, I think we can. I think we have some good ideas for this. I just want to sort of back up a little bit because Now, Allison has already said that she understands what she wants to do with it, which is to roll over her money. But just for people that are listening, maybe new listeners that don't have an idea of what their options are if they were to leave their employer and they have a 401k with their employer, I just want to talk about 3 different options that people typically choose from. One is just leaving your money in your 401k with what would now be considered your ex-employer, your previous employer, just keeping it there. The other option is to cash out the money in your 401k and do whatever it is that you want to do with it.
Pay taxes on it.
Yes. And the third one is rolling it over from your employer to another custodian and putting it into something like an IRA. Now, I will say cashing it out is the worst one that you could do, because not only are you paying taxes and potential penalties, but you're also stunting the growth of the money in your portfolio. You're taking it out. You're not allowing your money in your investment portfolio to grow. And if you want to retire, not even let alone retiring early, if you want to retire, you have to take advantage of these different accounts, put your money in, and allow your money to grow.
You know, we did the first option. So we actually left our 401ks with our previous employer because we liked the plans that we were in. We were working for the federal government, right? And so they have something called the Thrift Savings Plan. It's essentially a 401k plan, but the fees are low. The investments they're good investments. You know, you can invest in the S&P 500, and that was really what we wanted to do, was invest in something similar to the total stock market, and the S&P 500 is a really good way to do that. So we kept our money in one particular fund with our previous employer.
Yes, so I think one of the big differences between whether you keep it with your employer or whether you roll it over into an IRA, the difference is you have to look at what is the plan that's being offered by your employer? What types of options for investments are there in there? What are the fees? And a lot of times people will roll their money into something like a traditional IRA, because the traditional IRA, the brokerage firm that they can set that up with, provides so many different investment options. It can also provide lower fees than the 401k. And then sometimes people just like to consolidate their investments. So Allison and Greg are talking about putting their money in with Fidelity. Maybe they already have a standard brokerage account with Fidelity. Maybe they already are investing in their different IRAs with Fidelity. So by moving their 401k with their employer and rolling it over into their IRA with Fidelity, they can consolidate all of their accounts under one brokerage firm.
Yes, and there's a benefit to being able to see it all on one screen in order to manage your money. But for us, we also were cognizant of the low fees and the good investments that we had with our previous employer, so we just left it there. We could have easily just rolled it over to a traditional IRA with Vanguard, our favorite brokerage, but we decided not to.
Yes, so let's talk about Allison and Greg's specific situation. They have about $600,000 in Allison's 401k, planning to roll it over. And Allison is mostly concerned about the status of her portfolio now, because she's been investing. If you guys have been watching the stock market lately, the volatility in the stock market, there's a lot of downs right now. There's a lot of fluctuations in the market, and what you may have invested last year, if you look at your account, your portfolio may be lower than that. And that's what Allison is experiencing right now and saying, what should I move this over to? So what you can do, Allison, is you can do a transfer in kind. So a transfer in kind is where you have your existing investments in your 401k, you don't sell them, and you move them over into your new account with your new brokerage firm, which is Fidelity, in that traditional IRA. So you're not selling anything. So for example, if you have 500 shares in XYZ Corporation with your 401k, a transfer in kind would mean you go over to Fidelity and you transfer those 500 shares, and then you get them in Fidelity, 500 shares of that same corporation.
Now you have to keep in mind, a transfer in kind only works if that new brokerage has the same investments available that you had at your 401k. If they don't have the same investments available, then what a lot of people have to do is they have to sell their investments that are within their 401k and roll over the cash balances to the new traditional IRA. And then what you can do is you can use that cash balance to buy the equivalent investments. So if you were invested in a total stock market index fund at your 401k, you just find an equivalent total stock market at your traditional IRA and you buy that. Now, the reason why we say that is because hopefully you developed an asset allocation plan when you were developing your investment plan, and you identified what percentage of your money you wanted in certain investments. And so if your asset allocation plan hasn't changed, when you move that money over, why wouldn't you just buy the equivalent investments at the traditional IRA? Now, the reason why I bring this up is because Allison and Greg are concerned about losing money by selling their investments. So yes, their investments are down right now. And so if they sold and then never bought back in, they would be taking a loss. But by buying back in the new traditional account and by buying equivalent investments with the same money, those equivalent investments are also down at the same amount that their 401k investments are at. So they wouldn't be losing any money if they made that purchase soon enough.
So I think that's really important to think of it like that, because when you're looking at your portfolio, Allison and Greg, everyone else that's listening out there, you will likely be seeing a lot of red in your portfolio. And there's a difference between selling when you're in the red and you're selling at a loss because you're taking the money, you're not putting it back into the market, you're keeping it, you've sold at a loss. But in a situation where you're taking it out so that you can put it into the equivalent types of investments at the same time. It's not like you're taking it out and then a year later you're like, okay, then I'll put it back into my traditional IRA and I'll do this. That's not the same thing. We're talking about taking it out, moving it directly over into these equivalent investments. So you're in the same situation. So it's not really considered a loss because you're buying the same types of investments.
Now, it's really important that people pause for a minute. They're in this situation where they're looking at their accounts and everything is down, and recognize that at a time like this, that you start to study the history of the stock market and recognize that the people that have been invested in the stock market over the long run have been the most successful because the stock market has always rebounded. And I have to say this, it has always gone back up. It has gone down, but if you look at any chart of the stock market, it continues to go back up. So right now we're in one of those phases where the stock market is down. And so if you are consistent and you stay the course, history has shown us that these are the people that are rewarded for this.
Yeah, and I want to focus though that you're talking about the stock market, right? There can be individual pieces of the stock market that don't do very well. So we're talking about the overall stock market. And I point that out because I love that Allison and Greg are talking about VTSAX and VTI. And for listeners who are out there that aren't familiar with these investments, they're with Vanguard. So VTSAX is a total stock market index fund with Vanguard. VTI is a total stock market ETF with Vanguard. And so when you're looking at the performance of this index fund and this ETF, you're going to see that it's down because the total stock market is down. But once the total stock market begins to recover, you're going to see that the index fund VTSAX and the ETF VTI start to go back up. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that Allison was talking about investing with Fidelity. Now, with Fidelity, you cannot buy VTSAX, which is Vanguard's total stock market index fund, without paying a high transaction fee. But Fidelity does have an equivalent. It's FZROX, and its expense ratio is actually 0%. So that is an equivalent that you could invest in with Fidelity if you're interested in the index fund version of that. Now, if you want to invest in Vanguard's ETF, which is VTI, you can actually do that with no additional transaction fee through Fidelity. You can have a Fidelity brokerage account and you can invest in Vanguard's ETF if you wanted to do that.
Now, Allison asked, what should she invest in? We can't tell her what to invest in because we don't know her goals, objectives, her risk tolerance, her asset allocation plan. But you know what we like to invest in. We like to invest in the total stock market. And so for us, if we're moving our money over, we would be looking at something like a total stock market index fund. But Allison, you have to go out and do your own research and pick what is most appropriate to you. Now, I have some homework, Christina, because we talked about these different ways that you could roll over or what to really do with your 401k account. But we're also talking to early retirees. And if you're an early retiree, you should also be looking at your overall strategy for accessing your money earlier than the traditional age, right? And with a 401k, there are age limitations on when you can access that money. There are also age limitations on a traditional IRA of when you can access that money without taking penalties. So if they are moving their money from their 401k to their traditional IRA, they are still going to have access issues if they are early retirees and need that money. I bring this up because this may be an opportunity for them to be looking at doing a Roth conversion ladder. And by doing a Roth conversion ladder, we could do a whole episode on a Roth conversion ladder. But by doing a Roth conversion ladder, it moves their money from a 401k to a traditional IRA and then to a Roth IRA, which allows them to access some of that money penalty-free. And it's important to also take a look at this, especially if you're talking about retiring early, because you may need to access money in order to fund your early retirement. So sorry about the extra homework, but you must look at this holistically as an early retiree.
Yeah, and I think that Allison and Greg, you are in a great position to look into this Roth conversion ladder option right now because Allison, you're retired. It sounds like Greg is still working right now. And so you've went from 2 incomes down to 1. Now, when you transfer your money from your 401k to a traditional IRA, because they are in the same tax scheme, you're not getting taxed on doing that movement from the 401k to the traditional IRA. When you move your money from your traditional IRA over to the Roth IRA, that's where you're going to see the tax. It's going to be taxed as income. So this may be a good opportunity for you to look at the different strategies that you could do when you're implementing this Roth conversion ladder, because ideally you don't want to transfer all of it over at once because you have $600,000 in your 401k. That's a huge tax hit. But you can break that up over several years and keep that tax rate low because you have that one income and you're transferring just smaller amounts over. So I would encourage you to look into that. And for everyone else that's out there that has questions, please call in and leave a question for us. You can go to ourrichjourney.com/podcast to leave a question for us to answer in a future episode. We hope that you liked this episode. If you've been listening to this episode or any of the other ones, please make sure that you leave us a review because it really helps our podcast grow. So we hope you are having a great day and we'll see you in the next episode. Remember that we are not financial advisors and the views expressed by us are solely for entertainment purposes. You must make responsible decisions, and that means making decisions based on the thorough, independent research that you conduct. Thanks for listening.